All right,
Got it.
Jessy, what is your running story? How did you get started?
Oh, we're just starting off big,
Right,
aren't we?
big,
Okay.
right
All
from the
right.
beginning.
Jumping right in. Yeah. So I mean, I did like sports when I was younger, in like junior high, high school, right? Like typical team sport situations. And then I became an adult and did not do things like that, right? And so I started running. This is gonna sound weird. I lived in the middle of nowhere. And so I was like really stressed out. I had two kids, was going to school, working full time. I had a whole lot going on. And I was like, I'm going to pick up running because that's what you do when you have 4,000 things going on, right? Is you're like, let me add something else. And so I would literally like get home from work and go run in my front yard, like barefoot or with like my socks on. And that's like, I would just run laps. And then, so let's see, that would have been literally like maybe like 2012, 2013. It's about that time. And so I started off barefoot running, but it wasn't like the fanciful, like, Scott Urich stuff, that everyone sees and all that kind of stuff. It was like I was just a silly person in my front yard. And like my kids were doing tricycles and stuff, right? Throughout it. But then I was like, my job that I was working with, they were like, hey, we're doing this 5K that we're sponsoring. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do this 5K, right? Yeah, I think I about died through most of it. And it was a road 5K, right? And I think I huffed, I puffed. I mean, it was a whole situation. I was not very fast, but I did it. And I was like, I loved that. Let's do it again. And so then I started training. And I did a couple other like road races, a half marathon, all the little steps that you take on the running escalator as
Yes.
it might be, right? And then I kind of got off the escalator and started doing whatever the fuck I wanted. So let's see so I went to my first trail marathon in, I don't know, 2014, 2015, trail half marathon, and I did it with my friend, and I think we just walked and bullshitted the entire time, and it was the most beautiful experience. It was my first time in the trail running community,
Okay.
and so I fell in love. I was like, this is it. These are my people. This is my place. Like, it's not this like, I'm not really good with like corporate or like the leady type things.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just not good at that. I'm just not good at it.
Just not good at it.
Yeah. And so like trail running was like, you can do whatever you want. And and so I was like, yes, I'm here for it. So I started doing that. So I went from a trail half marathon and had done half marathons. And then a couple months later, I was living in Oklahoma at the time.
Okay.
So the Tulsa Urban was going on, which is
Mm.
like a 25-mile loop around Tulsa, and you do it however many times based on, et cetera, right? Based on the distance that you're doing. And so I had signed up. What did I sign up for? I think I signed up for the 50. And the original plan was I was going to do the 25-mile loop as my like marathon. And then I was going to like pace a friend for their 100, like at a later loop
Mhm.
situation. Well, I got done with my first loop. So this is all road still. I got done with my first loop and I was like, I feel great. I'm gonna keep going. And I'm pretty sure I was running with someone else. And anyway, so kept running. And and then I was like, okay, cool. Then I went and took a nap and came back and still paced my friend. So wound up doing like 25 or 75-ish.
Oh,
See, I
wow.
can't math either. Yeah. So math is not my thing either. There's a lot of things that aren't my thing, obviously. Trail running is my thing, and running, yeah, there we go. But yeah, so then I did that, and then I think it was not too long after that, maybe a month or two, I started training. I signed up and trained because I was like, oh cool, I don't need to do a marathon, I don't need to do the escalator thing anymore. I'm not saying that that's a great thing to do. I'll go ahead and preface that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that people do that.
Mhm.
Not as, and we'll see why, right? So I signed up for Rocky Raccoon in
Okay.
Texas, right? And I was like, cool, I'm gonna do Rocky Raccoon. I'm gonna do this 100. Man, I'm gonna be such a badass, right? Like, I just did it. I can totally do it. I did 75 in a weekend. I can totally do this. So I go train and I lived at the time. No, I didn't live there. I was like visiting my mom. She kind of lives near Huntsville. And so, anyways, So I went and I was training on the course and I fell like hard, like
Ooh.
real hard. And I don't even know why. Like it wasn't even anything exciting. Like I don't even remember, like, was it a route? I was running so fast? I don't know, right? But I definitely fell and I was like, fuck. And it like hurt real bad, like real bad. I was like, this seems like a problem. And so a couple of weeks go by and I'm just like still struggling. It's getting worse. Like it's getting worse. And then finally I'm like rolling around on the floor and my friend's like, maybe you should go to the emergency room, like, I don't know. It's a thought,
Maybe.
urgent care, something, I don't know. And I was like, sure, I'm going to do that. And turns out I had fractured my hip in 2 places.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
right?
That's
Pretty
intense.
strong right off the bat. Yeah. So that sucked. But of course, like, again, not advocating that people do this. I was like, okay, well, can I bike? I have this 100-miler in February, right? And it's like October, December, like
Okay.
November, like not reasonable, right?
Mhm.
Not reasonable. And I was just like, no, I can do this. So I like bought an exercise bike and like I lived on the second floor, crutch. It was ridiculous. Like the silliest thing in the world. But then I had an exercise bike. So there you go. I did go to Rocky Raccoon, long
Okay.
story short there. I made it 60 miles.
Ooh.
Yeah, again, not advocating that people do this.
Yeah.
I want to be clear.
There's your
Not
personal
fun.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of growth that happen, So yeah, but I did make it 60 miles, but I basically like my legs locked out. I could not, like it wasn't ready,
Yeah.
I was not healed and prepared for that. So that happened. And then I was like, maybe I'll take my time and like actually do this right. So then I just kind of did some like fun races. I think, was it right after that, or maybe it was the next year? I was at one of my friends. There used to be a Sizzling Sasquatch in Oklahoma
Okay.
race, and they did it twice a year. And I knew the race directors, and so I went to their kind of like spring fling thing. It had a relay and all that sort of thing. Actually met my wife there.
Ooh, yes. Love
I
that.
know, right? So very unplanned. I think it must have been that same year because I was still kind of recovering from the hip, and I was like, I'm just gonna go have fun and do whatever I want, right? And then I met this, silly little lady who's, all cute and whatnot. So that was a lot of fun, and so that was great.
Mhm.
Like started dating pretty immediately after that. This is about running, not about our relationship,
It's
but
about
it
you and
started with
running and
that.
the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's nothing that says like, okay, maybe you guys are meant to be, then if you like are showing someone your toes on the first like
Oh
time that
yeah.
you even
That's
meet
intimate.
them.
That's intimate.
Right. Like it's not even a date, right? Like you're just like, check this blister out, right? So there's that. Um, okay, we started with the origin story. Now I'm just going.
No, I
So let
love
me
it. I love it. I have like a
recap.
couple questions. One, when did you get running shoes? Because you were just running
Ooh,
barefoot.
yeah. So that's a super solid point. So I have really weird feet. And even right now, like I run in Lunas.
Okay. Yeah, you're the
Yeah,
sandals.
I did try ultras for a little while. I tried Hokas, I tried topos. It's not that
Yeah.
I didn't try them. I just can't,
You can't be
again,
enclosed. Yeah.
I just can't do it. I need freedom.
Got
Right?
you.
So
Okay. I can
yep,
respect that.
exactly. Yeah. So I guess it was sometime before the 5K that I originally did
Got
because
you.
yeah, I felt like on road it would be more appropriate
Have
to
something
have
on your
shoes.
feet.
Yeah.
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 That's
Hmm.
fair. That's so interesting that you just started out barefoot running in your, like, I've never heard that from anyone ever. Like, you're just like, I'm just going to run, quite literally.
Yep.
I'm just going to go out in my yard and do it. How big was your yard?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really wasn't that big. But it was how would I describe this? It wasn't small. Like it wasn't like a city. Like we were out kind of in the middle of nowhere and there was like
Okay.
a tree line, but it wasn't, I mean, like we're talking maybe a loop had to have been less than a quarter mile.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Still respectable. It's not like you're running back and forth in like a tiny front yard.
Right. Which I have also done. Don't recommend. Yeah.
Okay, so after a very gnarly hip injury, how long did it take before you were really able to like fully train and run again?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I did this one race. You know what? Actually, again, I'm sure there's like doctors who are like, please, dear God, don't listen to this lady talk about stuff. So again, I'm prefacing that. So I know where I am, right? I mean, I did 100 that October.
Okay, so like a year
So,
later.
so
Yeah,
about a year later, yeah. And I finished.
mhm,
I was last, but I finished.
amazing.
Yeah, it was Pumpkin Holler in Oklahoma. And I got a hammock out of it. So I highly recommend people being last. You
Oh
never
yeah,
know what you'll get, right?
yeah.
Still have my hammock. I love it. Yeah.
Wait, so what was the time cutoff on that race? What did last mean?
Mm. I want to say that I think it was 30 hours, but
Okay.
then there was a tornado in the middle of the race.
Oh, fun.
And so they extended it a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
ultras, right? Like there's
Yeah,
always,
that makes
yeah.
sense. And how
So
did your hip feel that year later?
pretty good. It kind of sucks. Like I have sciatic stuff,
Okay.
and piriformis issue. Like I
Yeah.
have one of those weird things that I'm constantly battling. But so the hip itself, the bone was great.
Mhm.
Just the muscles and all the time,
All the
all those little
support
things
around
were,
it. Yeah.
yeah, just still needed a little bit more work. So, and it's something I like daily work on. Like I have these
Mhm.
little exercises and I do them all the time now because I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm never
yeah,
gonna do that again.
yeah. You're foam rolling, you're doing all the little physical therapy things. Okay,
Oh,
so what
exactly.
is it you think about you that's making that you're making these certain decisions around running to jump up in distance, to run through an injury? Like, what is it about your personality? We're not advising it, right? But clearly
We are
there's
not
something about
advising
you.
it.
We're not
Yeah.
advising it.
Yeah. Not, and I will say I have tamed a lot.
Got
Like
you.
I am definitely, and I think that was something that I really needed to learn. Like, as I mentioned, when I did start running, like there was all this stuff going on. Like I was in school, little kids, all this stuff. And and work and everything. And I've always just been that way. I'm always like, I'll do everything and I'll do
Mhm.
everything the best I possibly can. Right. And
Got you.
everyone's like, no one even knows what I'm doing half the time because
Yeah.
I'm all
There's
over
a
the
million
place.
things.
Yeah. But I think for me, like running was such a, and has continued to be just a part of like, I guess my healing, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Right. Like
absolutely.
it was like at the time that I was doing that, like I fucking needed it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I needed that space for myself. I needed like when I'm physically active, I can like work things out in my head a little bit better. Like it just connects and flows and everything works a little bit. And like the challenge too, like the physical challenge that then kind of mirrored some of the stuff I was going on, that was
Mhm.
going on. It's like, oh, if I can run this distance or I can finish this race or I can do this,
Mhm.
like it's motivation to like I can do all these other things. Great. And like, and I will say, like, I had plenty of people who are like, respect your body, respect the distance. And I'm one of those people that says those things now. So if they listen to this, I want them to know I listened, right?
Yeah.
Just took me a while to learn that for myself.
Yeah. It's setting the boundary for yourself. Like when people come into running and are using it as like a mental health treatment plan, essentially,
Right.
it's hard to cut it off when you have a physical injury. You're like, no, but like mentally, I need this for my health, but also my
Hmm.
body does not need it for my health. And it's a hard boundary to set with yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was definitely even like pre-running, like, I used yoga inappropriately when I was younger, like I mean, just honestly, I did, and it is, I think it's a learning, it's that relationship with it and it's with the relationship with yourself.
Mm,
Ultimately, it's not necessarily your body, it's with yourself.
that's true. That's very true. Okay. So you got up to the 100-mile distance. Have you gone further than 100 miles?
I so I did Grand Mesa, which says it's 100 miles. It's in
Mm,
Colorado.
they get bonus miles.
Oh yeah, it was like 108 miles.
Okay.
And am I still salty about that? A little bit. I love the race, love the directors. But because of the, anyways, I have an unofficial time that I think someone else claimed on
Interesting.
yeah, ultra sign up, but I mean, whatever, it is what it is. But yeah, but so I wound up with like getting 2 minutes past again, I was
Oh,
last,
yeah.
which that one I got a beautiful framed picture. Again, like there's a theme. It's a theme.
You really like your time on the trail is what I'm sensing here.
Yeah, I want the most of it, right? Like again, like that first trail half marathon I did, like I'm in it. Like I'll be there. I'll hang out.
Yeah. I
Not a
paid for
problem
the
for me.
full time to be out here. I will take all
Exactly.
of it up. I love that. What has been your favorite race that you've done?
Mm, ran, volunteer, does it matter?
Doesn't matter. Just favorite
Doesn't
race,
matter.
vibes, you know?
Uh, honestly, so I did hurt,
Okay.
but I did only do the fun run. So let's go ahead and
Okay.
put that again. I have a theme, right?
Mhm.
Like I like to take my time, right? And so I think hurt, like the vibes were super great. You know what? Can I scratch that? Not
Yeah,
that
you
I don't
can.
love hurt.
Sure.
It
It's your
is.
choice.
I'll just make, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, I think Ancient Oaks.
Okay.
Have you done Ancient Oaks?
No, I've never heard of that one.
Okay, so it's in Florida, and it's in the Enchanted Forest
Hmm.
in Titusville, Florida. Again, maybe, yeah, maybe different times, right? As far as that goes too, but yeah, it's super great. You basically just email the race director, who is phenomenal. I love Mike with everything in me, but yeah, you email him and there's no rhyme or reason,
Mm.
and you either get an invitation or you don't.
Okay. Fun.
And the race, or you get waitlisted, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't get chosen, and you don't pay for the race, you just show up and get there.
Got
There's
you.
no buckle at the end. It's like sometimes it's a handmade craft, sometimes it's a little wood plaque. It just kind of depends. And it's like a give or take 3.5 mile loop
Mm.
through this terrain. It's super cool. Because it's like that style of race, it can attract different types of runners.
Mm.
Like especially in the ultra, right? Like if they're not necessarily chasing a buckle because there's not one, right?
Yeah.
And then they've got this, it's just like a whole party because every time you go back through, you're like in Tent City, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of go through that. So I really like that one. Dino Valley in Texas,
Mhm.
Glen Rose is also like, love it. I love like the course. I've done multiple different distances there. It's not my running, but my wife held the record there 1 year
Okay.
at one point,
Fancy.
right? I know she's so good. But I love volunteering there. We go like we've gone almost every year for the past couple of years. There's been one or two we've missed.
Mhm.
But I just love there by like it's also like a party every time you come in.
Yeah.
um, and I like to pace people on that too. I like to pace people in general, but yeah. So.
So it's like you're naming a lot of races, and it seems like you've run in several different areas of the country. And right now, are you in Virginia, or did I make that up?
I am. You did not
Okay.
make that up. I am there. Yes.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
God. So now you're in the Southeast. What
Mhm.
area of the country do you love to run in the best?
Oh man, it's so interesting because they all have such different
Mhm.
vibes, right?
Yeah.
Like, and even like the communities in each of them. Like, I love getting to meet people who are like local to that, and I always
Mhm.
try to go early to like try to run with the local group or something. Like, it doesn't always work out, but just to like pick up on the vibes and be there. Oh man, that's so hard. That's
Yeah.
so hard. Um, my because like, oh no, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm pitting you running communities against running communities. What
I
is the
know,
best?
and now I'm like, when they listen to it, are they gonna be mad at me? I don't
I
know.
don't think anyone's getting mad at you.
No, that's
I don't
fair.
think
That's
so.
fair. Yeah.
Because they
I'm
are. I
gonna
mean, I'll
say,
say this, like, I'm from the South. I'm from Tennessee. I grew up in
yeah,
that trail running scene. It's much
yeah,
different than the Midwest based scene that I am in now. It just is. The
yeah.
vibes are different. The aid station expectations are different. The trails are different,
Very.
right? And I wouldn't
Yeah.
have thought that that would be a thing that varies. But then you know, if you go out West Coast trail running, like literally there's avocados and shit beans or like whatever at their
Right.
aid stations. That is a thing. And so you don't
Right.
think about that being so varied by community, but like it is. And then you have scenes
Yeah.
that you've been in that like are really old and have been around a long time, and some that are
Yeah.
much, much newer. And they are different. They're all great. The trail running scenes,
Absolutely.
all amazing, but they're different.
But,
So which one do you love the most?
I really love like West Coast for scenery. Okay. Like
Yeah.
I love it for scenery. And I've met some great friends even there that live in Virginia actually at
Yeah.
this point. That you know, still see at races. Midwest I really love because okay, specifically like the Oklahoma one that I remember too, and in Texas, I think they do this. Some of the race stations. There we go, race
I like
stations.
that, race station.
Yeah, somebody use that for something. Yeah, a race station. Aid stations are super solid. You got like your waffles, your, you know, Fireball, if that's what you're into, right? Like all that, and not that there's not, I just remember that. There was Jameson in the Colorado race and Fireball in this race, you know? So like, maybe if I think about it in terms of the alcohol.
That's funny because
right?
at my races, being Chicago based, I serve Malort, which is a
Okay.
very regional, disgusting liqueur. It's disgusting.
Ugh.
It's
Okay.
totally gross. But in the South, we did Fireball, like, or you do like moonshine or whatever would
Yeah,
happen. But
exactly.
yeah, up here it would probably be Jameson, or I do Malort because it's funnier for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And the Virginia scene has been less alcohol that I've noticed
Yes,
at the races anyway.
not
So there is
surprising.
that. Yeah, yeah. So there's that. But it's interesting just the type of runners that it brings too. I've noticed since being in Virginia, again, Miss Last here, right?
Yeah.
And like they're all Russian. Like they've all got things to do, you know,
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
not
They're
playing around on these
fast.
hills. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
like,
so
I
funny.
love that for you. Yeah.
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 What races have you done in the Virginia area?
I've done a couple of more smaller races. Whatever. I'm doing a Ragnar this weekend.
Oh, rad.
A relay. Yeah. As I said, I don't like corporate things, but here I am
Here
doing
you
a
are to
Ragnar. So
Ragnar.
there's that. That's my second one too. Geez. The other one was in Washington. But this one will be Richmond. It'll be at like Pocahontas State Park. So that should be pretty great. I have seen some of like the Holiday Lake, Terrapin Mountain, Mill Mountain, some of the different more mountains, right? Literally within that. But yeah, I've kind of done a little bit more smaller. So I'm doing Moab in I don't know if I'm jumping yeah, right?
I was about to ask you like what
Again,
you're training
jumping.
for, like what your next thing is, but Moab.
Yeah. Yeah. So
More than doubling the distance.
yeah, get ready for definite last, right? That'll be me. Just don't even look at it. Yeah, it's all out, like till it's done. Yeah, because that'll be when that happens.
What made you choose that?
I hope that the people who convinced me to do this hear this, right? Like
Yes.
I'm going to send it to them personally. But no, so I was at Dino Valley last year with Acto, and I wound up pacing someone. And dear Jill, and she was like, no, like Moab's fantastic. You have to do Moab. And she's done Moab. And then I was also there, and Andrew Marvin was there and has like a podcast as well and has done Moab, and was like, no, you have to do Moab. Anybody, like, everybody should do Moab and like just try. And so I was like, anyway, after that weekend, I was like, crap, I think I've just talked myself into this like really big thing again. So I haven't signed up for many races since then because I was kind of waiting to see what that looked like. So I didn't, so I could kind of plan a little better. But yeah, so I was like, all right, fine. I'm just going to put my name in the hat. And if I get it, then it means it was meant to be. And if it isn't, then I will just live my best life. And and then I got in and I was like, oh shit. All right. I guess I better start training and stuff. So
what does your
like
training look like for Moab?
Yep, good question. So
Do you know the answer?
I know the answer? I think I'm still developing a little bit.
You
As
got a
I
little
go.
bit of time. A little bit of time.
Yeah, like I'm still working on it. But no, I've definitely been really focused on keeping the things I know are problems in check. And making sure that that foundation is really good. I'm also a yoga instructor, so I tend to do a significant amount of yoga. But I also like, and different types of yoga. So not just stretching, like strength, single leg, right? Like things that help create a lot of that. I do a lot of stuff that's super hip heavy because I've had hip issues, and in an ultra, you really need that stability in that core too. So, so I've been doing a lot of that and a lot of hiking, and then I run or jog if I feel like it. So,
a lot of power hiking. There's a lot of power hiking involved in the Moab, I'm sure.
and that's what I'm like, I would rather go in with a good stability that I can be consistent and stable, and not just try to blow myself out in the first bit. Like I want to be able to keep that endurance for what I know my body works with.
That makes sense. What's the time limit on Moab?
So it got extended, which is great because they added 13 more miles this year. Again, of course, this would be the one that I do.
Wait,
right?
So they added 13 miles. Does that make it a 253? Because isn't it 240?
Yeah, I think it was before, it was closer to 230 or maybe just under. And then, so they added it. So it's actually now like 230. It's closer to 240 at this point.
Gotcha.
I should probably find out what the,
let's like, because I'm curious.
I've been telling people it's like 4 or 5 days. So that would be really great if that continued to be accurate. Okay, this this says 113 hours, so that's Wikipedia.
Okay,
so
well that's not helpful. Who knows how many days that is?
Let's see.
Like 4 days, maybe 4 plus.
Yeah,
because 3 days is 72 hours, and there's some extra. It sounds like 4.5 days.
That seems accurate.
That seems close.
Okay, I need to cut a day off when I tell people that.
So you've got to do like 4 60-mile days.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
You can totally do that in 24 hours. And
you get to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, you got this. Yeah, you'll be fine.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. And again, I have just learned that I am better mentally if I don't go in thinking I'm going to be super fast, or because like then I get in my head and but if I just am, all right, I'm going to be last. Like if I just know that, and I know, okay, at least, but I can be consistent until then, for me mentally, that works. And sometimes I am last and sometimes I'm not. So
I love that, because I feel like you're not doing that mental math that messes a lot of people up in ultras, where they're like, oh, I want to do it in 24 hours. And then every aid station, they're like calculating pace, which is just garbage, and just puts, and you are less like, I'm going to finish, I'm going to finish.
Exactly. Because I definitely used to do that. And I'm not good at math, as we have already learned, right? Multiple times just in like 30 minutes, right? And yeah, I just don't want to deal with it. I'd rather just go have fun. And especially with trail running and ultra, like you're out there to be out there. Like for me anyway, right? Like some people, they do have those speed goals, and like that's part of their life, right? For me, it's just like, it's a very personal mental thing. I think.
How do you balance training? I mean, your kids are not fully grown up yet, from my like loose math that I'm doing in my head, and maybe they are, but like, they're not full grown up. So how do you balance being a mother, like an active mother, and your training and just the rest of your life?
Like when they were younger, they were cool, like going to races with me and like helping volunteer, because it didn't just run, like we'd go volunteer and pay, like that was just kind of like a regular part of our weekends. And so like they were usually pretty cool, or they'd go run like the smaller part, or we'd do the smaller race, or something like that. But now they're like a little less, they don't really care as much, right? Like
it's not as cool.
Yeah, it's not as cool, it's not as fun, whatever. Sometimes you don't have service for the Wi-Fi, it's terrible. So how do I balance that? I don't know that I've always done the best job at it. But just to be honest, being human. But like a lot of times, especially a couple of years, I would wake up super early and do it. Like when they were younger, I would wake up so early, like ridiculous. Like there was no reason for me to wake up at 2 a.m. to go get my miles in. You know what I mean? Like there was no reason for that, except that I wouldn't have had time, or I wouldn't have had a
Yeah.
babysitter, or I wouldn't have had, so it was like, all right, I'll just run this little block and,
Yeah.
get my miles in and then call it good. But again, there was that mental part where that helped me get through the rest of the day,
Yeah.
that energy and all that dopamine and whatnot. So I mean, at this point, they're a little bit more like, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go for a run, or hey, I'm gonna go to yoga. They're like, bye, like, see
Yeah.
you later,
Yeah.
um, so as they've gotten older, I don't have to be quite as extreme, which is great. So
Yeah. 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 A
so
bit more balanced for sure.
yeah,
Um, outside of Moab 240, which is like a big goal, what's like
yeah.
a dream event for you, or even like a dream trail system that you would love to go check out? Doesn't have to be within a race.
Yeah, I really want to do, I just have so many, because I'm like, oh my God, they're all going in my head right now. I'm like, there's the Appalachian Trail, there's the Long Trail, there's the
Oh
Continental
man,
Divide,
you
like these
just totally gave
longer,
yourself
like,
away as like not local for the way that you said Appalachian.
I know I'm not low. Yeah,
Appalachian.
definitely.
It's Appalachian.
Appalachian.
It's
Oh man.
Appalachian, man. You
Appalachian.
gotta say it. You're giving yourself away.
Okay, I've got to practice. Yeah. Okay. Appalachian. I can do this. That's what I'm doing all the rest of the day. Thank you, Allie.
Appalachian. Appalachian.
I love it. I love it. I've always been drawn to, like, I don't know, like just that, like Colorado, Arizona, Utah,
Mhm.
like not necessarily the Rockies, but like a little bit further, from that. I've always been super into that. And Grand Mesa was awesome. It was like, it was in Grand Junction,
Mhm.
or near Grand Junction. So that other side of Colorado towards Utah. And I don't
Yeah.
know, I've always been fascinated with it. I'm not from there. I don't know. Like, I just love it. So
Yeah. It's like that
mm,
desert mountainous terrain.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
mystical. It's like mystical. There's like vibes and like weirdness out there.
Yeah. It's something like, I went to where'd I go last year? I went to Utah and just hiked the Fairyland Trail at, I don't think it was I think it's at Bryce Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And oh my God, like it was magical. Like it was just like, I can't believe this is a real place
I
that
know.
I'm
It
in
is
right now.
crazy. Yeah.
hmm And I
Okay.
think for me, yeah, I like being able to be in a different spot. It's nice. Like where I don't feel like I'm even on the same planet, you know?
Yeah. 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 That's so funny. I talked to a runner the other day and he likes to stay so local, right? He has his
hmm
own reasons for he just
I
wants to
think I
stay
listened to
hyper.
that podcast.
Yeah. He wants to stay so local. He wants to know people at his events. And so it's just funny the
Mhm.
different motivations for people of what like gets them to different trails in the ultra. And you're coming at it from like, I'm just going to go somewhere totally different in my own head
Mhm.
for 30 plus 113 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
just just working things out, just working things out. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have a question that you get to speak on because you're kind of an expert of like why should ultra runners be doing yoga?
Oh, how could you not? Right? Like that, I'll go ahead and plug that, right? Like, how could
Yeah.
you not? Like, and that's the thing. There's a different type of yoga for everyone, right? So
Mhm.
like, I was having this conversation with someone the other day because it like frustrates me as a yoga teacher
Yeah.
that like people say, oh, just go do yoga. And it's like, it's not just any old class or any old whatever. I mean, like, yes, go try stuff out, but I think that's the point. Like, go try it out and find what works for you.
Mhm.
And it's not like some people love Kundalini, some people love, 26 and 2. Some people are super Ashtanga, some people are real flowy, like find what works for you, which I'll actually do, but also like, I mean, especially if you're talking about ultra, you're putting your body in such a repetitive position, right? Like then like that can lead to injury, right? Like right, like as I can speak to that to myself, right? Like, and all those things have to work together. And yoga is just such a great way. You literally don't need anything. You can do it anywhere. Like I'm here in my office, like I could pop out a warrior 3 right now, right? To half moon and work on my hips, like um and I think another thing is like people get so like, oh, I have to go to this 1 hour class or 1 hour and a half class, but like you can literally like do yoga while you brush your teeth in like a yogi squat, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that helps open up your hips, which can help you run a little bit better later. So I'm like, why, if you know it could help, why not do it? Right. Like,
I thought you might be passionate on that subject.
okay. Sorry. Yeah. I realized I'm going to rein it in a little bit.
You're like really leaned into the camera. Like you were there for it. I thought, oh, let me just lob her a softball. I'm with you. I've done yoga my whole time. I do very limited. I used to be much better at it. But then I had a baby and prioritized different things. But it's like a natural benefit for runners, and especially if you want to have longevity in the sport and not have a persistent, like a piriformis syndrome that just takes you out of the sport because you can't get over it because you're not doing the supplemental things. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. All those little things, right? So they add up. So
as someone, because it seemed like I talk to a lot of runners. I don't talk to a lot of people that volunteer as much as they run, but it seems like you do a good amount of volunteering. What do you think it takes to be a good ultra running volunteer?
I would say like you don't have to be an ultra runner yourself to do that, for sure. Now I know people who are ultra runners and volunteers, and man, they fucking rock, right? Like, because they know, or they've been through it, or whatever. But then like just being there, being willing to be out there, be miserable, because like, especially if it's like, I'm immediately going back to Dino Valley last year. Because it was so fucking cold, right? And like we weren't moving, right? And so just being able to do that, be flexible, plan ahead, right? Like that, I don't know. I think of volunteering. I also come from like a little bit of an event planning background, and I'm also like a therapist. So like I'm like creating space and experiences for people, and like this space for them to do this thing. Like that's just like I don't know. That's like a thing I really, really think. So I feel like a good volunteer has to like you're there for them. Like, sure, you're there to have a good time and enjoy yourself, because when they come in feeling like shit, right? You want to be able to be like, okay, what do you need? Right? Do you need, like, you want to be helpful, you want to be friendly, and just like, I've met some of the most awesome volunteers that have become, again, some friends at races too. Being on the other side of it. But I think being willing to be there with them, even if like you have no intentions of ever running, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, being like a nurse or something like that is great too, right? Just in case, and being an ultra runner. But I mean, there are things that can make it more beneficial, but I think just being willing to hang. I mean, I don't know if that is a good answer.
No, it's super helpful. No, it's super helpful, because I think a lot of people like want to volunteer, but feel like a reticence because they're like, well, I don't know what's involved. And really, it's just showing up and being friendly at the end of the day, right? Just show up and be friendly. And then, I mean, I always advise people, because I have a lot of people come to me, they're like, oh, I want to be an ultra runner. I'm like, well, you need to go volunteer first.
Absolutely. Because those volunteers are how you make it to the end of that fucking race.
Yeah. And it also shows you like what it actually looks like during an ultra, like what people are actually doing. It's not watching Scott Jurek run, whatever, it's not watching the ultra running documentaries, but being there at an aid station to see, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it helps you prepare yourself even for getting into it, and setting good expectations, which I love your mindset of just like, I'm going to get across the finish line, not doing mental math. I'm not setting metrics on that. I love that so much.
Yeah. And that's why, like, when I volunteer or when I pace, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm like, the job is to get you to the finish line. Right. So like, what do you need? If you don't know what you need, I'm going to offer a suggestion. And if you say hell no, then we know that's not what you needed. Right. Like, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah. Trial by error. We'll get there.
Exactly.
We'll get there. What is one of your funniest race memories?
Okay. So it's the one that's coming to mind, and maybe I have other ones, but this is the one I've got. So we're going to go with it. It was actually when I was pacing my wife at Rocky Raccoon. So there were so many things that went so fantastically, quote unquote, with that race. But she definitely threw like a sandwich at me. And I think I don't think I've paced her since that race, actually. Like, as I sit and think about that, not for like a long stretch. I did pace her. Yeah. Okay. But she threw a sandwich at me. There was someone that was like, who was it? I and it doesn't matter who it is, but we were going to like the Far Out aid station out there.
Yeah.
And there were like people at the aid station who was like, why is this like woman talking to this runner this way? And then when they like found, right, I know, because I was like, you're fine, get up, like let's go, like
Yeah.
you know,
Good
again,
tough love. Yeah.
right, exactly. And they were like, and then when they found out we were married, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense now. And I was like, yeah. But then at the end, we're like going, and of course, like it's the last bit of the race, right? And so my poor wife, you know, just jogging,
Yeah.
just doing what she can, handle it, you know. And I was like, I need to have the fastest turtle. And or someone else looked at me and was like, I bet my turtle's faster than yours. And so because they had a pacer, a friend, and I was like, and we're like in the home stretch, you know. And so I looked at Kelly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, you better pick it up. Like, I'm going to cross the finish line before you do. Are you going to be with me or not? Like, or just not even be, you know? And so she's always like, now that it's like a constant theme in our household about like, who's the fastest turtle. And yeah, that's sort of thing.
I love that so much, mainly because I'm thinking about if my wife ever paced me or I ever paced her and I said that to her, she would just stop running. She'd be like, no, don't tell me what to do. Like that's not our dynamic, right? Like that's not tough love, but I'm just cracking up even thinking about it, because she would throw a sandwich at me for sure in a heartbeat.
Yeah, definitely. And I was like, I brought you a Red Bull. Like, how dare you? You know, like,
it's
but I think, exactly. But I'm definitely the other way. Like, if she's like trying to, you know, oh, you got, I'm just not going then.
Yeah, not moving. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. And maybe it's not the funniest, but sorry, this other thing came in, and obviously I'm just talking a lot right now, but at Hurt, I took a 15-minute nap at the bottom of Manoa Falls, like amazing. On their little rock bench. And like, I don't know if it's funny. It's like kind of funny, I guess, that I took a nap like at the fall, but it was beautiful. Like it was
what a lovely spot for a nap.
I highly recommend if anyone's ever there, nap right
take
there.
That 15-minute cat nap. I love
exactly.
I'm just imagining someone like stumbling upon you, like not knowing that there was an event and there's just a person just sleeping there. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. Whatever. Amazing. Jessy, thank you for coming on and talking to a stranger on the internet. I appreciate it. Thank you for the good vibes. You know, I'm excited to see what you're going to do at Moab. I have a couple athletes and a couple friends running the event, so I'll be checking on you to see how you do. You know, you're going to cross the finish line.
So I have to work for it now. I've said it on a podcast. Like
you said it on a podcast. You're going to share the podcast with your friends. It's a whole thing.
A whole thing.
No, there's no shame in a DNF. You know, no shame in a DNF. There's no shame.
Yeah.
But you do have to finish. There will be shame if you DNF.
Yeah.
You specifically.
Oh, exactly. No, definitely. There definitely will be. Only for me.
Only for you, not for others that may be listening. It's okay if they do it. Amazing.
Right.
Jessy, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. You too.